The silver ship hung in space like a jewel against the black. Captain Lee Hyun watched it through the thick glass of Luna Station's observation deck. His hands were steady, but his heart beat fast. Today would change everything for humanity. "Sir, they're asking permission to dock," said Commander Kim Bo-ra. She stood beside him, her uniform crisp and clean. Her voice was calm, but Lee Hyun could see the worry in her eyes. "Give them permission," Lee Hyun said. "Today we meet our first aliens." The ship was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Its surface moved like liquid metal, shifting and changing as it came closer to the station. Lee Hyun had seen the pictures, but seeing it in person made his chest tight with wonder and fear. Dr. Park Soo joined them at the window. She carried a tablet full of notes and readings. "The energy patterns are unlike anything we've ever seen," she said. "Their technology is so far ahead of ours that we can barely understand it." Engineer Choi Min was checking the docking systems for the 100th time. "Everything is ready," he called out. "The translation systems are working. The meeting room has been prepared according to their requests." Lee Hyun nodded. 3 months ago, the aliens had sent a message to Earth. They called themselves the Galactic Council. They wanted to meet with humanity to see if humans were ready to join the greater community of spacefaring races. The message had been simple but serious. Every new species had to pass a test. A special alien called a Mind Weaver would look into a human mind to check if humans were mentally stable enough for galactic citizenship. No species had ever failed this test. No species had ever hurt a Mind Weaver during the process. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Dr. Park Soo asked Lee Hyun. "We could choose someone else. Maybe someone with special mental training." Lee Hyun shook his head. "I'm the captain. If there's any risk, I should take it." He had spent weeks preparing for this moment. He had practiced meditation and mental exercises. He had studied everything they knew about telepathy, which wasn't much. The alien ship docked with a soft sound that they felt more than heard. Lee Hyun watched the airlock readings change from red to green. The aliens were coming aboard. "Remember," Dr. Park Soo said quietly, "they've done this thousands of times with hundreds of different species. They know what they're doing." The first alien to step through the airlock was tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue metal. It wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. Behind it came 3 more aliens, each one different from the others. One looked like a walking tree, another was covered in scales, and the third seemed to be made of flowing water. But it was the 5th alien that made everyone stop and stare. This one was the Mind Weaver, and it was beautiful in a way that made humans feel small and simple. Its body was made of what looked like living crystal, with patterns of light flowing through it like blood through veins. Its face was almost human-like, but perfect in a way that no human could be. "I am Veltaran," the crystal alien said. Its voice came from everywhere at once, not just from its mouth. "I am honored to meet the species called humanity." Lee Hyun stepped forward. "I am Captain Lee Hyun. We welcome you to Luna Station." The aliens gathered around a table that had been specially made for this meeting. Veltaran sat across from Lee Hyun, its crystal body throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. "The process is simple," Veltaran explained. "I will touch your mind with mine. I will see how your thoughts work, how you handle emotions, how you solve problems. This tells us if your species can live peacefully with others." "Does it hurt?" Lee Hyun asked. "Never," Veltaran said. The lights in its body pulsed gently. "I have done this with representatives of 437 species. Each time it is like reading a book. Your thoughts will be open to me, but I will not change anything. I will not take anything. I will only observe." Dr. Park Soo was taking readings with her equipment. "I'm seeing some unusual energy patterns," she said quietly to Commander Kim Bo-ra. "The alien's brain works completely differently from ours." Veltaran heard her. "Yes, human doctor. My mind is designed for this work. I can understand any form of consciousness. I can navigate any type of thought pattern. In all of galactic history, no mind has ever been too complex or too strange for a Mind Weaver to understand." The alien's confidence was complete. It had done this so many times that it was routine. Like a human doctor checking someone's heartbeat. "Are you ready, Captain Lee Hyun?" Veltaran asked. Lee Hyun looked around the room at his crew, at the other aliens, at the equipment monitoring everything. He thought about Earth, about humanity's dream of reaching the stars, about all the people counting on him to make the right choice. "I'm ready," he said. Veltaran reached across the table with one crystalline hand. Simply touch my hand with yours. The connection will happen naturally. Lee Hyun reached out. His human hand looked so small and rough next to the alien's perfect crystal fingers. Do not be afraid, Veltarin said softly. In moments this will be over and humanity will take its place among the stars. Their hands touched. Veltarin's eyes went wide. The lights in its body flickered once, twice, then began to flash rapidly. For the first time in its long life, the Mindweaver felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. Dr. Park Soo's equipment started beeping wildly. Commander Kimbora moved toward her weapon, then stopped. Engineer Choi Min watched the energy readings spike beyond anything they had ever seen. Lee Hyun sat perfectly still, calm and peaceful. But inside his mind something was happening that would change the galaxy forever. Veltarin had expected to find an organized library of thoughts. Instead it found a storm. The moment Veltarin's mind touched Lee Hyun's consciousness, the alien's world turned upside down. Every other species Veltarin had ever examined kept their thoughts in neat, organized patterns. Memories were filed away like books on shelves. Emotions flowed in simple, predictable channels. Logic moved in straight lines from problem to solution. Human minds were nothing like that. Lee Hyun's consciousness was a hurricane of activity. Veltarin tried to find the main thread of thought but discovered there wasn't just one. There were dozens, maybe hundreds, all running at the same time. While Lee Hyun sat calmly at the table, his mind was doing impossible things. He was thinking about the meeting, yes, but he was also remembering his childhood on Earth, planning what to have for dinner, worrying about his sister's job interview happening 3 days from now, creating a mental picture of what Veltarin's home planet might look like, and solving a math problem he had been working on last week. All at the same time. Veltarin's perfect crystal mind, designed for order and clarity, began to fracture under the chaos. The alien tried to follow one thought, only to find it splitting into 3 others which then split again, creating an endless web of connections that seemed to follow no rules at all. This is impossible, Veltarin whispered, but the sound came out broken and strange. Dr. Park Soo looked up from her instruments. The energy readings are off the chart, she said to Commander Kimbora. Something's wrong. But Lee Hyun seemed fine. He sat peacefully, his eyes closed, breathing steady. Inside his mind, he was living a dozen different lives at once. Veltarin experienced Lee Hyun's memory of being 7 years old, playing in his grandmother's garden. But this wasn't just a simple memory. As Lee Hyun remembered the garden, he was also imagining how it would look if it were on an alien planet, wondering what his grandmother would think about today's meeting, and feeling sad because she had died 5 years ago. The human mind did something that no other species could do. It mixed reality with imagination so completely that Veltarin couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. How do you function? Veltarin asked, speaking directly into Lee Hyun's mind. How do you make decisions with all this noise? Lee Hyun's mental voice was calm and amused. What noise? This is just thinking. Veltarin tried to understand. In the alien's experience, thinking meant focusing on one problem, examining it logically and finding a solution. But Lee Hyun's mind worked like a jazz band where every musician was playing a different song. Yet somehow it all worked together to create something beautiful. The alien watched Lee Hyun solve a tactical problem about station security. But instead of working through it step by step, Lee Hyun's mind approached it from 6 different angles at once. He imagined worst-case scenarios, remembered lessons from military history, considered what his grandfather would do, thought about a movie he had seen about space battles, and even wondered what the alien attack ships might look like, all while his subconscious mind was already working out the answer. When the solution came, it wasn't logical. It was creative. Lee Hyun had combined ideas that had no business being connected and somehow made them work. This is madness, Veltarin said, but even as the words formed, the alien began to understand something terrible. This wasn't madness. This was how humans thought. This chaos was normal for them. Veltarin tried to pull back to end the connection, but Lee Hyun's mind was like quicksand. The more the alien struggled, the deeper it sank. Lee Hyun wasn't trying to trap Veltarin. He was just thinking normally, but his normal was driving the alien insane. The crystal being experienced something it had never felt before. Confusion. Every time Veltarin thought it understood what was happening, Lee Hyun's mind would shift in a new direction. The human was thinking about the meeting, but also composing a letter to his mother, also remembering a song from his childhood, also designing improvements to the space station, also wondering if aliens had music. How do you concentrate on anything? Veltaran asked desperately. I am concentrating, Lee Hyun replied in that same calm mental voice. I'm concentrating on everything. That was when Veltaran realized the horrible truth. Humans didn't just think about one thing at a time because they couldn't. They thought about everything at once because that's how they had evolved to survive. Their minds were built to handle chaos, to find patterns in randomness, to create order from disorder. And they did it without effort. Veltaran watched Lee Hyun remember a battle from his military service. But the human wasn't just remembering what happened. He was simultaneously analyzing what he could have done differently, feeling sorry for the enemies who had died, planning how to explain the experience to his future children, wondering if aliens had wars, and somehow finding beauty in the tragic waste of it all. The alien's perfect ordered mind began to crack. Veltaran had been designed to understand consciousness, but human consciousness was impossible to understand because it contradicted itself every second. Lee Hyun felt guilty about surviving the battle while also being proud of his service, while also hating war, while also appreciating the lessons it taught him, while also hoping his children would never have to fight, while also knowing that sometimes fighting was necessary. How could one mind hold so many opposite ideas at the same time? You're all insane, Veltaran gasped. Maybe, Lee Hyun agreed. But we're happy that way. That was the moment when Veltaran's mind finally broke. The alien had spent its entire existence believing that consciousness meant order, logic, and clarity. But Lee Hyun's mind was showing it something else entirely. Consciousness could be chaos, creativity, and contradiction, and still work perfectly. In fact, it worked better than perfect. It worked beautifully. Veltaran's crystal body began to dim as its consciousness fractured. The alien tried desperately to organize its thoughts the way it always had. But Lee Hyun's chaotic thinking patterns had infected its mind like a virus. For the first time in its life, Veltaran began to imagine, not just to remember or analyze, but to create new ideas that had never existed before. The experience was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The connection finally broke with a sound like breaking glass. Veltaran collapsed across the table, its crystal body flickering with strange, uneven patterns of light. Lee Hyun opened his eyes and looked around the room with concern. Is everything all right? He asked. Did I do something wrong? Dr. Park Soo was already moving toward Veltaran with her medical scanner. Commander Kim Bora had her hand on her weapon. Engineer Choi Min was checking the station's systems for damage. But the damage wasn't to the station. The damage was to Veltaran's perfect ordered mind. For the first time in galactic history, a mind weaver had been broken by contact with another species. And the worst part was, deep down, Veltaran didn't want to be fixed. Veltaran lay on the medical table in Luna Station's emergency bay, crystal body dim and flickering like a broken light. Dr. Park Soo ran her scanners over the alien while the other members of the Galactic Council delegation watched with growing alarm. Ambassador Thek Mol, the blue-skinned leader of the delegation, stood rigid with shock. This is impossible, he said, his voice carrying harmonics of distress. Mind weavers cannot be harmed by telepathic contact. Their minds are the most advanced in the galaxy. Commander Kim Bora kept her hand near her weapon, not sure if the humans were about to be blamed for what had happened. Captain Lee Hyun didn't do anything aggressive, she said firmly. He just sat there and let your telepath read his mind. That's exactly the problem, whispered Kethra, the tree-like alien. Her leaves rustled with anxiety. If a simple mental touch from a primitive species can break a mind weaver, what does that say about this species called humanity? Lee Hyun felt terrible guilt eating at his stomach. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, he said. I don't even know what happened. I just thought normal thoughts. Dr. Park Soo looked up from her readings. That might be the problem, she said slowly. According to these scans, Veltaran's brain patterns have completely changed. The organized neural pathways have been replaced by something much more chaotic. Veltaran's eyes opened suddenly, but they weren't the calm, wise eyes of before. Now they darted around the room, taking in details and making connections that seemed random and strange. Colors. Belteran said in a voice that sounded broken and wondering. I never noticed that the lights make colors on the walls. Pretty colors that dance and change. Why didn't I see them before? Ambassador Thakmal moved closer to the medical table. Belteran, can you hear me? We need to understand what happened during the mind link. Belteran sat up slowly, crystal body still flickering in uneven patterns. I touched the human's mind, the alien said, voice filled with confusion and something that might have been joy. But it wasn't a mind like ours. It was like trying to understand a storm by catching raindrops. Explain, demanded Thakmal. Beltaran's gaze fixed on Li Hyun, and for a moment the alien's expression showed something no mind-weaver had ever displayed before. Wonder mixed with fear. Their minds are broken, Beltaran said. But they work better broken than ours do whole. The human was thinking about this meeting, but also about his childhood, about food, about mathematics, about music that doesn't exist, about conversations he might have tomorrow, about people who died years ago, all at the same time, all connected in ways that make no sense but somehow create meaning. Dr. Park Soo frowned. That sounds like normal human cognition to me. We call it stream of consciousness. Multiple parallel processing threads. Normal? Beltaran laughed, and the sound was both alien and disturbingly human. There's nothing normal about it. You exist in a constant state of controlled madness. You solve problems by breaking logic. You find truth by believing contradictions. You create things that never existed by imagining them first. Engineer Choi Min stepped forward. Is that bad? Beltaran looked at him with eyes that now held depths they had never possessed before. I don't know. I've never experienced bad before. Or good. Those are human concepts. We have efficient and inefficient. But humans have something else. They have feelings about efficiency. Ambassador Thakmal's skin shifted to a darker blue, a sign of serious concern among his species. Beltaran, you're not making sense. We need to return you to the ship for proper medical treatment. I am making perfect sense, Beltaran replied. That's the problem. I'm making human sense, which is completely different from galactic sense. Watch. The alien stood up and walked to the window overlooking space. I see the stars, and my old mind would catalog them by brightness, distance, and spectral class. But now I wonder what it would be like to dance among them. I imagine stories about the beings who might live on planets around those stars. I feel sad for the lonely planets with no life, and happy for the ones that might have music. The other aliens in the room exchanged worried glances. This was not how mind-weavers were supposed to behave. Dr. Park Soo made more notes on her tablet. Beltaran, when you were connected to Captain Li Hyun's mind, did you experience any pain? Pain? Beltaran considered the question in a way that seemed very human-like, tilting its head and looking thoughtful. No, not pain. Overwhelming complexity, yes. Terrifying beauty, yes. The feeling of falling into an infinite space filled with lights and music and stories. But not pain. Li Hyun stepped closer. I felt you in my mind. You seemed afraid. I was afraid, Beltaran admitted. But now I understand that fear isn't just a warning signal. It's also the feeling you get when you're about to discover something wonderful and terrible. Commander Kim Bo-ra looked at the other aliens, who were becoming more agitated by the minute. What does this mean for humanity's application to join the Galactic Council? Ambassador Thakmal's skin had turned almost black with worry. It means we have a problem. If human minds can break mind-weavers just by thinking normally, then humans represent a threat to every telepathic species in the galaxy. We're not a threat, Li Hyun protested. We didn't even know this could happen. That makes it worse, said Kethra, her leaves shaking with agitation. An accidental weapon is more dangerous than an intentional one. Beltaran suddenly laughed again, the sound echoing strangely in the medical bay. You're all missing the point. The humans aren't the problem. We are. Explain, Thakmal demanded. Beltaran's crystal body began to pulse with new patterns, chaotic but somehow beautiful. For millions of years, we've built a galactic civilization based on order, logic, and predictability. We've created a universe where everything makes sense, where every problem has a clear solution, where every mind thinks in neat, organized patterns. The alien moved to the center of the room, gesturing in ways that seemed more expressive than any galactic species had ever been. But what if we've been wrong? What if consciousness isn't supposed to be orderly? What if the reason we've stopped growing, stopped discovering, stopped creating new things is because we've made our minds too perfect? Dr. Park Soo felt a chill of understanding. You're saying that human chaos is actually an advantage? Veltarin nodded enthusiastically. The humans don't just think. They dream. They don't just solve problems. They create new problems worth solving. They don't just exist. They become. Ambassador Thakamal was now radiating distress signals in multiple spectrums. This is madness. You're talking like them now. Yes, Veltarin said with satisfaction. I am, and for the first time in my existence I feel truly alive. The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Humanity hadn't failed the test. They had broken the test itself. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Dr. Park Soo worked through the night, her laboratory filled with alien technology and human computers trying to understand what had happened to Veltarin. Engineer Choi Min helped her run tests while Commander Kim Bo-ra stood guard. The situation was getting worse by the hour. Veltarin had locked itself in one of the station's observation rooms, staring out at the stars and making strange sounds that might have been singing. The alien had never sung before. None of its species had ever sung before. They didn't understand the concept of making sounds for pleasure instead of communication. The neural pathways have completely reorganized, Dr. Park Soo reported to Captain Lee Hyun. Veltarin's brain is still the same physical structure, but the way information flows through it has changed completely. It's like the alien's mind has been rewired to think like a human. Lee Hyun felt sick with guilt. Can we fix it? Can we change Veltarin back to the way it was? That's just it, Dr. Park Soo said, looking puzzled. I don't think Veltarin wants to be changed back. Every time I suggest medical treatment, the alien refuses. It says it doesn't want to lose what it's gained. Ambassador Thekamal and the other Galactic Council members were having emergency meetings on their ship. They sent messages back to their home worlds, describing humanity as a dangerous species that could infect other minds with chaos. The response was swift and terrifying. Humanity should be quarantined immediately, cut off from the galaxy until they could find a way to make human minds safe. But Lee Hyun was beginning to understand something important. He had spent weeks preparing for the mental contact, studying everything they knew about how human brains worked. Now he was putting together pieces of a puzzle that could change everything. Dr. Park Soo, he said, why do human minds work the way they do? Why are we so different from the aliens? Dr. Park Soo looked up from her data. Evolution. Earth was a chaotic planet. Climate changes, natural disasters, predators, diseases. Humans had to adapt constantly. We developed brains that could handle multiple threats and opportunities at the same time. And the aliens? Most of them evolved on stable planets with predictable environments. Their brains developed to be efficient, logical, organized. Perfect for their worlds, but maybe not flexible enough for rapid change. Engineer Choi Min joined the conversation. I've been analyzing the energy patterns from the mind link. Something interesting happened when Veltarin's consciousness touched Captain Lee Hyun's. The alien's brain started generating new types of neural connections, pathways that don't exist in any known galactic species. Lee Hyun felt a spark of understanding. Veltarin isn't broken. Veltarin is evolving. Dr. Park Soo stared at him. That's impossible. Neural evolution takes millions of years. Unless you have a template to copy from, Lee Hyun said. When Veltarin touched my mind, it didn't just see how humans think. It learned how to think like a human. The alien's brain adapted to handle chaos and creativity. Before Dr. Park Soo could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the station. Commander Kim Bo-ra's voice came over the communication system. Captain, we have a problem. The Galactic Council ship is powering up weapons. They're preparing to destroy Luna Station. Lee Hyun ran to the command center, followed by Dr. Park Soo and Engineer Choi Min. On the main screen, they could see the alien ship's weapon systems charging with deadly energy. Ambassador Thekamal's voice came through the speakers. Captain Lee Hyun, we regret that this has become necessary. Humanity represents too great a threat to galactic civilization. We cannot allow your species to spread this mental infection to other worlds. You can't just kill us, Commander Kim Bo-ra protested. We haven't done anything wrong. You exist, Thekamal replied coldly. That is enough. Lee Hyun felt desperate. In minutes, everyone on Luna Station would be dead, and Earth would probably be next. The first contact that was supposed to bring humanity to the stars was going to end in genocide. That's when Veltarin appeared in the command center. The alien moved differently now, with flowing motions that seemed almost like dancing. Its crystal body pulsed with chaotic patterns that somehow looked like art. "Don't let them do this," Veltaran said, its voice carrying emotions that no mind-weaver had ever felt before. "They're afraid of what they don't understand. Can you stop them?" Li Hyun asked. Veltaran paused, and Li Hyun could see the alien thinking in new ways, considering possibilities that had never existed before. "Maybe, but I need to show them something first. I need to make them understand what they're about to destroy." The alien moved to the communication console and placed its crystalline hands on the controls. "Thekmol, this is Veltaran. I request permission to address the council." There was a long pause before the ambassador responded. "Veltaran, you are no longer of sound mind. We cannot trust your judgment." "Then let me show you my judgment," Veltaran said. "One last telepathic contact. Let me share with you what I've learned." "Absolutely not. We will not risk infection." Veltaran's laugh was both alien and human at the same time. "You're too late for that. But I'm not offering to change you. I'm offering to let you see what change looks like." Dr. Park Soo stepped forward. "Veltaran, what are you planning?" The alien turned to her with eyes that now held depths of feeling no galactic species had ever known. "I'm going to show them what they've been missing. For millions of years, the galaxy has been perfect, ordered, logical. But perfection means no growth, no discovery, no joy. And if they still decide to destroy us?" Li Hyun asked. Veltaran's crystal body pulsed with something that might have been hope mixed with sadness. "Then at least they'll know what they're destroying. And maybe, somewhere in the future, another species will find what we've discovered here and do something wonderful with it." The alien turned back to the communication system. "Thekmol, I'm opening a telepathic link whether you accept it or not. You need to see what humanity has given me. You need to understand what consciousness can become when it's allowed to be beautiful instead of just efficient." On the screen, they could see the Galactic Council ship's weapons reaching full charge. In seconds, Luna Station would be nothing but space dust. But Veltaran closed its eyes and reached out with its transformed mind, ready to show the galaxy something it had never seen before: the chaotic, wonderful, impossible beauty of human consciousness. What happened next would determine whether humanity lived to see tomorrow, or whether the galaxy would remain forever locked in its perfect, sterile order. Veltaran's mind reached across space like a river of light, touching the consciousness of every being aboard the Galactic Council ship. Ambassador Thekmol tried to resist, but this wasn't the same gentle telepathic probe that mindweavers usually used. This was something new, powerful, and impossible to block. The alien crew of the Council ship suddenly stopped what they were doing. Weapons technicians froze at their controls. Navigator officers stared at their screens without seeing them. Ambassador Thekmol himself stood motionless in the command center, his blue skin flickering with patterns of confusion and wonder. For the first time in their ordered lives, they were experiencing human-style consciousness. Veltaran didn't force them to think like humans. Instead, the transformed mindweaver simply showed them what it was like. The alien crew felt the strange joy of having multiple thoughts at the same time. They experienced the wonderful chaos of imagination running alongside reality. They felt the beauty of finding patterns in randomness and meaning in contradiction. Ambassador Thekmol, whose mind had been perfectly logical for 300 years, suddenly understood what it meant to hope for something that might never happen. Kethra, the tree-like alien, felt the odd pleasure of wondering what it would be like to walk instead of root. The water-flowing alien named Shedak experienced the concept of dreaming about impossible colors. Captain Li Hyun watched the alien ship on his screens and saw the weapons powering down. "Veltaran, what are you doing to them?" "I'm showing them who they could become," Veltaran replied, crystal body now blazing with chaotic patterns that looked like living art. "For millions of years, they've built a civilization based on perfection. But perfection means you can never be surprised, never discover something new, never feel the joy of solving a problem that shouldn't have a solution." Dr. Park Soo monitored the telepathic energy readings. "The connection is stable, but it's not like the one with Captain Li Hyun. This one is gentler, more controlled." "Because I'm not trying to examine their minds," Veltaran explained. "I'm trying to share an experience. I'm showing them what it feels like to think with creative chaos instead of rigid order." On the council ship, remarkable things were happening. Ambassador Thekmol, for the first time in his life, began to compose poetry. The words made no logical sense, but they created emotional responses that his species had never experienced. Kethra started combining mathematical equations in ways that served no practical purpose, but somehow seemed beautiful. Shedak began to imagine stories about beings who had never existed, and places that could never be real. Commander Kim Bo-Ra shook her head in amazement. They're learning to be creative. More than that, Lee Hyun said, watching the patterns on the alien ship change from rigid geometry to flowing organic shapes. They're learning to be alive in a way they never were before. The telepathic connection lasted for exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the Galactic Council ship hung motionless in space. No weapons charged, no threatening messages came through the communication system. For long minutes there was only silence. Then Ambassador Thekmol's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different. Instead of the cold formal tones they had heard before, there was something new in the alien's voice. Wonder. Velteran, Thekmol said slowly, what have you done to us? Velteran smiled, an expression that no mind-weaver had ever made before. I've given you a gift. The same gift that Captain Lee Hyun gave me. The ability to see that consciousness doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. We can still think logically, came Kethra's voice, filled with confusion, but now we can also think differently. We can imagine things that don't exist. We can feel emotions about ideas. We can find beauty in chaos. And we can choose, added Shedak. We can choose to embrace this new way of thinking or return to our old patterns. The humans haven't forced anything on us. They've simply shown us that there are other ways to be conscious. Dr. Park Soo looked at Velteran with growing understanding. That's why human minds are so chaotic. We evolved to have choice in how we think. We can be logical when we need to be, creative when we want to be, and we can mix both approaches together. Ambassador Thekmol was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a mixture of fear and excitement that his species had never known. The Galactic Council will need time to consider this development. We cannot make a decision about humanity's status while our own minds are changing. Take all the time you need, Lee Hyun said. We're not going anywhere. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. Word spread about what had occurred at Luna Station. Other species, curious about this thing called creative consciousness, began asking for voluntary exposure to human-style thinking. Dr. Park Soo established the Institute for Consciousness Studies on Luna Station. With Velteran's help, they developed safe methods for aliens to experience controlled amounts of human-style chaotic thinking. Not every species could handle it, but many found that adding a touch of creative chaos to their ordered minds opened up possibilities they had never imagined. Engineer Choi Min worked with alien scientists to create new technologies that combined logical alien precision with human creativity. They developed art forms that had never existed, solved mathematical problems that had puzzled the galaxy for centuries, and began designing spaceships that were both functional and beautiful. Velteran became something entirely new, the first being in galactic history to successfully combine two completely different types of consciousness. The alien served as a translator between human chaos and alien order, helping both sides understand each other. 6 months after first contact, Ambassador Thekmol returned to Luna Station. His blue skin now showed patterns that shifted and changed like art. His formal robes had been replaced with clothing that served no purpose except to be pleasing to look. The Galactic Council has reached a decision, he announced to Captain Lee Hyun and his crew. We cannot grant humanity membership in our civilization. Lee Hyun felt his heart sink. Because we're too dangerous? Thekmol's expression showed emotions that his species was still learning to understand. Because our civilization is no longer worthy of humanity. We spent millions of years building a perfect ordered galaxy, but perfection is another word for death. Nothing perfect can grow, change, or become something better. The ambassador gestured to Velteran, who stood nearby, pulsing with chaotic patterns of light. Instead, we would like to propose something different. We want to learn from humanity. We want to rebuild galactic civilization to include both order and chaos, logic and creativity, perfection and growth. Velteran stepped forward, crystal body now a living work of art that changed constantly while remaining beautiful. The galaxy has been waiting for this for millions of years. We just didn't know it until a human mind showed us what we were missing. Dr. Park Sue smiled. So instead of humanity joining galactic civilization wants to become more human? We want to become more than we were, Thekmol said. We want to become something that has never existed before. A civilization that can think with both perfect logic and beautiful chaos. Captain Lee Hyun looked out at the stars through Luna Station's observation windows. Somewhere out there, entire species were learning to dream, to imagine, to create things that had never existed before. The galaxy was becoming a more wonderful place, and it had all started with one simple telepathic touch. "Welcome to the universe," he said to the stars. "It's about to get a lot more interesting." And in the depths of space, Veltaran's laughter echoed like music, carrying the sound of a galaxy learning how to dance.